worst thing the federal government can do during an inflationary recession? Raise taxes! Good job, guys! That's exactly what reckless Democrats have done, passing the Inflation Reduction Act. That's a comical name. It owes its passage to our tie-splitting vice president who couldn't explain the difference between inflation and inflammation if her cackling existence depended on it. It is a $739 billion monster that the CBO declares will have a negligible effect on our raging inflation. That means it's not going to bring it down. We got into this mess because of overspending idiocy. So what are the dum-dums in the Senate doing? They're spending more money and paying for it by force. The IRS is going to hire 87,000 new agents to come after small businesses and working-class stiffs with a vengeance that would make Lois Lerner join the Tea Party. The IRS will perform 1.2 million new audits every year, and they will throw you in jail if you don't comply because although taxation is theft, they're coming to rob you blind at gunpoint, and somehow that's legal. There will be 14 times more money spent on enforcers than for tax services. You know, the people on the phone who pretend to make nice as they separate you from your hard-earned cash. There are so many thousands of new agents, they won't just target high earners. They'll come after you for sport because they can and they have a mandate. And quotas don't give a rip if you make under 400K. Read my lips, Mr. President. These are new taxes, you liar. So what's as bad as raising taxes during an inflationary recession? Raising gas prices when energy costs are already spectacularly out of control. There will be new taxes on coal, oil, natural gas, all in the name of appeasing climate hysterics who have less empathy than sense, by a lot. And they don't give a damn if tithing their climate religion leads directly to your suffering. Expect gas and oil to get much more expensive. The cost of everything else is going to keep shooting up. And some nasty letters are about to arrive from the IRS demanding your head on a stick if you don't fork over fees and penalties to a new army of Satan's arrogant agents. I wish I could save you from this fresh hell, but these DC dopes who claim to want to save the economy are sending it straight to hell. And that's the memo. Ka-chow. Hi, Monday. You need more proof that this IRS plan to hire more agents is insane? Once the agency staffs up, it will have more employees than the State Department, the FBI, and Border Patrol combined. So why are they still claiming they won't be auditing more people? That's a friggin' lie. Let's get into it with tonight's party panel. We've got Fox News contributor and National Review Institute fellow. It is Douglas Murray. He's joined by Democrat strategist, radio host, and another Fox News contributor, Leslie Marshall, and co-founder of Based Politics and Foundation for Economic Education Policy correspondent, Brad Palumbo is back. All right, well, let's set the record straight. Why should anyone trust that the IRS, Douglas, is only going to go after wealthy Americans when they've got this much manpower and a pretty broad mandate?
You know, you're right, Kennedy. The IRS, so far as I know, is the only tax collecting body in the world that has an armed military wing. The only one in my own country of birth, Great Britain, the tax authorities can come after you at the very last moment. You could be thrown in jail if you keep evading and avoiding taxes. But actually, the idea of the tax authorities busting down your door and coming in with all guns pointed at you would seem farcical. It would seem an extraordinary overreach of government. And in America, people are used to it. And as you say, it's not just, the super wealthy who they're going to come for. The problem in all of this is that you have a system in the U.S. which isn't even understandable by the most brilliantly educated figures in the country. Do you remember a little while ago, after Donald Rumsfeld died, there was a letter published in the Wall Street Journal where he'd submitted a tax return of his some years ago saying, look, I've worked in the government most of my life. I've had all of these various positions. I don't know if this tax return is accurate or not because I can't understand all the rules, nor can my attorneys, nor can my wife, and she's an expert as well. That's the reality in America, is that it's so hard to understand what on earth your tax situation is. And then you have the threat of them busting down the door to punish you. It's
Absolutely.
outrageous.
No, and that's a really good point, Leslie, because instead of simplifying the tax code and simplifying immigration, these are things that Democrats should be doing. They are making it more complicated. So it's very difficult for people, especially who do their own taxes, small business owners who don't have money to hire an army of accountants to cross every T and dot every I. They're the ones who can run afoul of IRS policy. So, instead of just going for this massive cash grab because they've overspent, why not simplify it?
I have so much to say on this. Look, any piece of legislation, whether it's my party or another party that passes it, there are usually things I like and things that I don't like. I don't like this aspect of the legislation. I don't like the IRS. I'm being audited right now. Hello, hi,
No.
Katie. Anyway, and I have to tell you, my husband and I pay a lot of taxes, but they come at you again, and they come at people, and we see the research that has come out that they have come in the past years, especially in 2021, after lower wage earners, which doesn't make any sense, because if you want to get more money for the government, you really should go after the richer people who can hire people to hide their money overseas. And those are the people most likely that are not paying taxes and not claiming all of the money that they have. Does it bother me that you can get arrested for not paying your taxes? No, because if you break the law and not paying your taxes is a violation of the law, that doesn't bother me. What bothers me is not just myself, but so many other people out there, and people who earn less than my husband and I, especially, to be honest with you, they're auditing people for 2020, and they're asking, how come your income went down? We were in a pandemic, and a lot of people didn't have work, had to shut their businesses down, weren't allowed to operate. The list goes on. There used to be years ago, Kennedy, when I was in Boston, Massachusetts, my home city, a bumper sticker that said meter maids eat their young. I think the IRS do.
Yes, absolutely. I would love to abolish the IRS. Unfortunately, Brad, we're not quite there, but here we are talking about the hell that is to come for many lower income earners in this country. What does this have to do with either the climate or with inflation relief?
Absolutely nothing. It's all just budget gimmicking. I mean, this plan does basically nothing to address inflation. A bunch of different objective agencies, from the Tax Foundation to the CBO to the Wharton School of Business, have all said it will have minimal impact on inflation. Even Bernie admitted it on the Senate floor. So this is not about actually reducing inflation, but it is about glomming up more of our money to spend and waste and hand out in what's honestly pretty corrupt crony capitalist subsidies to well-connected industries, and the expense for that is going to come from a tax crackdown that will affect low-income people the most.
Yes.
According to the Joint Committee on Taxation, 90% of the revenue raised will be on people who earn less than $200,000. Only about 5% will come from people who earn more than $500K. So this is not progressive in any meaningful sense of the word. It's an IRS crackdown on the working class.
Yes, and progressives hate the working class. If they didn't, they wouldn't have gotten this hunk of red meat that raises taxes on all the energy industries. All right, well, speaking of the so-called from red meat to the red hot economy, Friday's jobs report was a huge surprise, but does it tell the full picture? According to the Labor Department, companies added 528,000 new jobs last month. That's more than double what forecasters thought. You'd think that'd be a great thing for the economy, but former Clinton Treasury Secretary Larry Summers says maybe it's not. Cassandra, let's hear a track record of actually knowing how to do math and being correct on this kind of thing. Are his concerns real? Douglas?
I actually think they are. He is on to something. Larry Summers is not somebody I always agree with, but I think on this he is on to something. Look, the oddity of what has happened at the moment in America and in Western countries is that we're effectively in one form of a definition of recession, without a doubt. And yet we're not seeing the sort of joblessness numbers that you would normally see in a recession. In fact, you're seeing actually a desire, a need for labor that often isn't there. I mean, how many small businesses and others are trying to fill gaps in jobs and are finding it very difficult to fill those gaps? That's a very unusual thing to happen in a recession. So this is a very complex time when it's a very complex picture we have. It is true that ordinarily you would have a decline in employment, you'd have rising unemployment figures, and that would be one of the things that would get you out of the inflationary cycle. What is happening at the moment is very curious. And it is possible that that Larry Summers is right, that we should worry about the inflation, because what is effectively happening is people will continue to be employed, wages will stay stagnant, but the inflation will continue to go up. And that does get us into a very, very dangerous economic situation.
And I actually think, even though, more jobs were added than they thought, Leslie, I think the jobs picture is more fragile than people even realize. So when you raise interest rates and you make it expensive to borrow money, and it's already a tight labor market, sure, businesses will try and pay more to fill those positions, but then they have to raise prices, and that's what really exacerbates inflation. But Larry Summers is one of the few people who's been honest in that they have to raise the unemployment number in order to tamp down a recession. That's one of the jobs of the Fed.
And the pressure is on the Fed when you have unemployment this low, a record historical low, when you have more than double the expectation of a jobs report. Look, I like and respect Larry Summers, and sometimes I agree with him, and sometimes other economists agree with him, and sometimes they don't. Not everyone is of the same mind when it comes to increasing unemployment numbers. I think everyone is of the mindset that, again, the pressure is on the Feds with this, and I've said it before and I'll say it again. They were slow to act, so they ended up, instead of titrating up, they ended up, pushing together very quickly increases, which really freak the American consumer out, regardless if you're rich or poor.
Yeah, and that's one of the problems, Brad, is, we talk about the president. What can the president do? What can the Senate do? Their answer is to always spend more money, but we don't talk enough about the ills of central banking and what really caused this. And the problem is, when you get to this point where the economy very easily could fall off the cliff, there's nothing they can do except for make a bad recession a global recession.
Yeah, I mean, the Federal Reserve got us into this mess. One of the biggest causes of inflation was their decision to digitally print trillions of new dollars out of thin air. And of course, when you have more money chasing the same amount of goods, prices will go up. This is Econ 101. Now, the Fed is in a very difficult position now, because with inflation at almost 10%, you would have to raise the interest rate up to 11% or 10.5% to even get us into a real interest rate that's positive. Because right now they're raising rates, but we're still technically in negative interest rates when you account for inflation. So now we're between a rock and a hard place, and the only way out of it is intense economic pain, unfortunately. The jobs numbers are strong. That's the one upside of this economy, with inflation and declining real wages. But we're not going to stay that way for long and tamp down the inflation. It's hard to see how we can do both.
Yeah, and it's like we don't talk enough about central banking and the real cause of inflation, and we also don't talk about the labor force participation rate. And that is the iceberg under the surface, and that's what could really complicate this entire picture. So we have to be honest about the data, what we see and what we don't see. It's like dark matter. It's pervasive throughout the entire universe. All right, party panel, sticking around. Breaking news, this is crazy. Former President Trump tonight claiming the FBI currently raiding his home at Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida. The feds have not yet confirmed the raid, but in a statement, number 45 said in part, quote, "Such an assault could only take place in broken third world countries. Sadly, America has now become one of those countries, corrupt at a level not seen before. They even broke into my safe!" Exclamation point, end quote. So what is this all about? The party panel is back. It's new to them as well. Douglas Murray, Leslie Marshall, Palumbo. Okay, so Douglas, what is going on? What does this mean? Is the federal government just trying to thwart a potential Trump 2024 run with this?
I mean, this is insane. We were discussing earlier about the Inland Revenue being used as the IRS being used as a political tool. But there will be significant portions of the United States tonight who will now be seeing the FBI as being used as a political tool. It's obviously an unbelievably highly political thing to happen. To see a former president's residence raided by the FBI, I can't think of a time anything like that has happened. Part of the country will tonight be absolutely horrified by this. Part will be saying, fantastic, we're going to get him, and all those left-wing dreams of seeing Trump and his entire extended family locked up, they'll feel they're one step closer. But a lot of people will just see this is the sort of thing, we talk about the way in which the United States has been, divided. This is the sort of thing that can easily be a serious conflagration moment.
So what do you make of this, Leslie? It seems like this might be a little heavy-handed. I know there are a number of investigations going on concurrently, but it's a bad precedent to set.
But we can't have a precedent here, and I don't think this is political. I think the Department of Justice is doing its job. They are the Department of Justice. If the allegations are true that there were documents, and some believe classified documents, stored at Mar-a-Lago for over a year, that is a violation of the law. How do you find out if the documents are there, if in fact those documents are classified? Yeah. If I were the former president, I would want them to find if he is in fact innocent. Hey, take a look around. I have nothing to hide. We didn't take anything from the White House. We haven't stored it in the house for over a year, and nothing's classified. No laws broken.
That's not how it works, Leslie. Let me come into your house. Have you read the Constitution? Have you seen the Fourth Amendment? That's a tricky mistress for this story. All right, well, Hillary Clinton also stored thousands and thousands of classified documents, maybe not in paper form, in a safe, but did the Fed seize on that? The president also tweeted here, or he released a statement that read in part, Hillary Clinton allowed to delete and acid wash, which great genes, 33,000 emails after they were subpoenaed by Congress. Absolutely nothing has happened to hold her accountable. Lock her up. She even took antique furniture and other items from the White House. Not antique furniture. So, Brad, what do you make of Hillary Clinton's name being inserted into the statement? I think that there are parallels here.
Yeah, well, it always was going to be with Trump. He always finds a way to bring up Hillary. But I find this news to be pretty concerning. I will say it's possible that the FBI, crossed their T's and dotted their I's and did this by the book. A judge would have had to sign off on this warrant. It doesn't always mean a lot, unfortunately, and it's at moments like this that I'm glad conservatives are waking up and realizing that we can't and shouldn't trust the FBI. This is the same agency that harassed and blackmailed Martin Luther King Jr. We already saw the FBI's anti-Trump bias revealed in texts from agents during the actual Russia investigation. And we learned in 2022 in April that they have surveyed 3.4 million people's texts and emails without a warrant. So if in another world where they had more credibility, we could trust blindly that they wouldn't do something that isn't by the books, but we can't have that faith in the FBI. And if this is another reminder to Republicans who historically have, pushed surveillance and law enforcement to have sweeping broad powers, that was a mistake, then maybe it's good in the long run, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, Mitch McConnell, one of those Republican lawmakers who has had no problem concentrating more power and more spy power in the hands of the FBI. So hopefully enough of the country will be outraged by this. Maybe it's on behalf of someone they look up to, a political leader, Donald Trump, but this sort of spying and this unconstitutional overreach, it has to end at some point. So, Douglas, I just want to bring this up quickly. We only have about a minute left. So this is happening in Florida. And some Democrats are waking up to the reality that Ron DeSantis actually poses a bigger threat to their power than Donald Trump. Is there something about this symbolism? Could this be the forcing of the past torch?
It could be. I don't think myself that Donald Trump is going to give up that torch very willingly. I don't think he particularly wants to be part of a relay race and hand it over to DeSantis. But DeSantis does have an awful lot of favorables related to him, not least if he was elected. The United States could break the cycle of electing people to president only if they're about to touch 80. And I myself will be very in favor of us just going, all those decades back and thinking you don't have to be in your 80s to run the United States or any other country.
Run it into the ground. Thank you, Nancy Pelosi. Doug, Leslie, and Brad, great to talk to all of you. Thank you so much.